So, as I said, welcome to the February NetBox Community Call. We're going to kind of follow our standard, format and agenda. I'll give you a kind of highlight on a few of the upcoming events related to NetBox and at NetBox Labs. Give you a bit of news on kind of some of the latest product news happening around NetBox, and then we'll have what is always the most important part of this, most interesting, our guest speakers. And so we have two speakers, or there's a plural there that shouldn't be there. Our first speaker will be Rob Crawford from NetBox Labs, and we'll have Renato Oliveira from talking to us as well today. And then at the end, we'll just close it up with a call to action for anybody who'd like to, share their stories, their success stories with NetBox or other kind of related projects going forward. So without further ado, I'm going to roll on. So the first event that I want to call out is not it's not a NetBox Labs event. It's actually a partner event with our partner WWT. So this is a hands-on lab workshop. Using NetBox as a single source of truth for your infrastructure. So this is a hands-on interactive session. Jeff will be doing that later this week. It's actually very soon. It's actually on Thursday of this week. But it looks like a really exciting event with a lot of great content. My understanding, there's still room for that, even though it's only a few days away. So definitely look into that if that's of interest, or pass it along to maybe other members of your team that are looking to learn more about NetBox, particularly in the context of network automation and building a network automation stack with Ansible. Just saw there's a message coming in. Let me just take a peek. Oh, hello from everyone. Hello, everyone. So that's our first work event. And then in the lines of the NetBox Labs events and webinars that have been extremely popular in the last few months, we have one. And I think this one is particularly interesting because it's a joint webinar with the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, and the Idaho National Lab. About using NetBox as part of an open source project called Malcolm to do network security management for OT environments. So this is kind of different than a lot of the things we've done recently. I think this is going to be a really exciting webinar with a lot of great content in a kind of a sphere of usage of NetBox that we're not used to hearing quite as often. So I think this will be an exciting webinar. I encourage everyone to join that one as well. So moving on from there, one of the big announcements we did last week at NetBox Labs is the announcement of a new product called NetBox Assurance. We actually announced this at AutoCon 2 in the fall, in November, that we were going to be coming out with this in the early part of this year of 2025. So we've announced the private preview of NetBox Assurance. And what NetBox Assurance is, it's a sidecar product to NetBox. So it's not part of NetBox directly. It's a sidecar that allows you to kind of manage operational drift in your network. Essentially, it helps you kind of reconcile data about your network, whether it's coming from discovery agents, it could be coming from flat files, it could be coming from any source of information about the network that you actually want to reconcile with your NetBox data. It allows you to review the changes that are being proposed to NetBox based on that data, and ultimately allows you to selectively apply those changes to NetBox to keep NetBox up to date. And the whole idea is give you visibility on your drift, kind of drift meaning the difference between your intended state as it's represented in NetBox and the operational state of the network. And then ultimately kind of understand what's the differences, what's the drift, and then ultimately helps you keep NetBox up to date with that, or ultimately maybe update the network. Maybe there are changes happening in the network that shouldn't have happened, and allows you to, again, identify those differences between NetBox and the network and make the necessary corrections in the network to do that. So as I mentioned, it's not an available product yet at large. It's available in private preview. We're looking for private preview participants that would be interested in kind of taking a look at it and providing early feedback on that product. If that sounds something that's of interest to you, please reach out to product@netboxlabs.com and let us know your interest, and we'll reach out to, we'll follow up with you to set that up. So that's really exciting stuff. We're looking to make this as a generally available product later this year, towards the end of the beginning of calendar Q2, so in the April-May timeframe. The second announcement I have around NetBox is that we're working on NetBox service mappings. So, you know, if you have if you ask yourself questions like, you know, what does this application or service actually touch, or which customer is consuming which resources? If you're asking yourself these types of questions when it relates to NetBox data, this is where we are, you know, hoping that NetBox service mappings could help. And the idea is to be able to map or overlay service modeling on top of the NetBox data itself to answer, again, these types of questions. So we're currently in the design phase. We actually have a working prototype, but we're still very much in the design phase of this new capability. So, you know, we're looking for people who have opinions or perspectives or, you know, specific takes on this, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you're interested in learning more, you can look at on our blog page on our website. There's a blog announcing this, or you can reach out again to product@netboxlabs.com and let us know your interest, and we'll reach out to you. We'd love to hear your feedback. This is a great time to make you know, your perspective on this known, if this is a problem that you'd like for us to solve for you in a way that kind of works with what you're trying to achieve. So on that note, we can move on to, I guess, the core of our presentation today, which is our speaker. So our first speaker is Rob Crawford, who's a senior DevOps engineer at NetBox Labs. He's the man behind much of the NetBox cloud infrastructure. He knows about managing NetBox at scale, but he's going to be talking to us about a plugin. And so on that note, I'd like to pass it off to Rob. Are you there, Rob?
I am, yeah. This will be nothing to do with NetBox Cloud or Scale or anything DevOps related. Let me share my screen if I'm allowed. Is this showing a presentation, hopefully?
It is, it is.
Good. Yeah, so I'm Rob. I'm a DevOps engineer at NetBox Labs. I'm from the UK, but I'm currently working in Brazil for a little bit. And today I'm talking about my NetBox Themes plugin. This has been somewhat optimistically described as a Winamp skins for NetBox, if you are old enough to remember Winamp from the, I don't know, early 2000s maybe, and all of the glorious music that came with that era. So I'll give you a 2-minute background on where this idea came from. So it started with this kind of profound question. What would a Greg's theme look like for NetBox? So if you're not from the UK, you probably won't know what Greg's is. It's like a McDonald's for pastry and cakes in the UK. And here in the UK, we love Greg's. I think every city must have tens, if not hundreds of these places. So this question came up in our Slack. And Greg's has got this kind of distinctive-ish blue and yellow theme going on. So I don't know why, maybe I had nothing to do that day, but I decided to mock this up in Photoshop, and it looked absolutely terrible. So the answer to the question, what would this look like, is just hideous. So I think this idea should have probably stopped at this point. However, Mark Coleman, who, I don't know if he's on the call, normally he's here, not sure, he kind of threw down the gauntlet a little bit with this and said he would pay good money to see this become real. So that's kind of where this started. So at the time I was looking for another little side project to work on. So this seemed like a good one to start with. And when Mark says he'll pay good money for something, he actually means the polar opposite. I have not seen any money for this. So what on earth is this plugin? As plugins go in NetBox, this is a relatively straightforward one. It's a Django model that contains a CSS document. It's some Django template modifications to inject the CSS into the Django views. It's the usual uninteresting Django NetBox plugin glue to make this work. So forms, migrations, views, URLs, that kind of thing. And the most important bit is the actual CSS. So these themes are pure CSS. There is no custom JavaScript going on. And this is like my CSS level, by the way. I write CSS by trial and error until it looks about right. And then I just give up because it's too complicated. So where can I find this? Usual places, Google it, or look on GitHub and PyPy. Demo. Okay, so let me change tracks to here. So hopefully you can still see this. This is my NetBox Community 4.2.2 install. So I've skipped the install steps for this, but the install is pretty much the same as any other NetBox plugin. So if you look on the GitHub README for this, pretty standard stuff. You would do a pip install into your local Python environment for your NetBox, edit your configuration.py, stick the NetBox themes into that plugins array, then the usual run the migrations, collect static content, and then restart the NetBox. So once you've done that, you will have a new submenu item over here on the bottom left. So under the plugin submenu, you'll see NetBox themes and then a themes manager. And then this will show you what your current themes are. So by default, it won't ship with any of them. And I'll give you a quick demo on how to create and start to customize like the look of NetBox. So let's create a new one here. So I'm going to give it a name. I'll call it test. I want to activate it. You can choose a base theme here. So by default, it will inherit the dark light toggle thing in the top left here. But if you want, you can set a dark or a light mode explicitly, and it'll remove the toggle over there. For this one, I'll just leave the toggle where it is. And what shall I do with this? Let's edit the body of the document. Let's say, for example, I like monospace fonts instead of whatever this font name is. So what I'll do is set the body element in the HTML and then set the font family to monospace. So if I do this, then create it, give it a second. So it's a pretty subtle change, but you will see now all the fonts here and on the left and up here have been changed to monospace. So this is a really simple example of what you can do with this. Or maybe you want to change it to something, I don't know, a bit uglier. Maybe this is too good looking for you. So you might want to do a serif font instead. So now it's changed all the fonts underneath the body tag to serif. But that's super, super basic. You can do a lot more with this depending on your CSS skills. So for example, this is a little bit more complex. This is a December theme I did, I think, just before Christmas. It does a little bit more than change the font, mostly injecting emojis all over the place. So it adds a little Santa and some Christmas presents, and then does a couple of color palette changes in the bottom left. So instead of like the little teal accents here, it's got like greens and reds. So if you were to look at the CSS for this, for example, it's still pretty straightforward. It's effectively just finding the elements I want to change and then replacing the content with something else. But once I'd done that, I started to get a feel for how ridiculous this could really be. So I tried making a Doom theme for NetBox. This had mixed results. So this is doing a bit more than the other ones. It's replacing the entire font family with this largely illegible, like modern 2020 Doom font. It's also replacing the main logo. It's replacing all of the emojis with like this Doom guy. And it's also replacing the color palette with this more angry looking red and black style. So I'll show you a few more. So once I've done this, I kind of got a feel for how to do it. So I tried making a Star Trek one. If you ever watched Star Trek The Next Generation, which is the best TV show ever, all of the computers in that had like this really distinctive, like retro futuristic design. So I tried to build that in a NetBox theme with, I would say, mixed results. So this is doing the same thing: fonts, color palettes, logo changes. It's also doing like some background image injection here as well. And I nearly got CSS animations behaving properly. So I got this box to flash, and then I couldn't work out how to do anything else. So I kind of just gave up with it. Which other ones can I demo? I'll demo one or two more, and then that will be it. So I tried making a Pokemon theme as well for NetBox. So if you ever played the very original Pokemon games on the first generation Game Boys, they had like this kind of hideous olive green and black display. I've tried to build that in NetBox, again with mixed results. But again, this is like similar to the ones. It changes the colors, the icons, the font face, the logos, and it injects all these characters here as well, which quite interestingly, these are a font face where each character is a letter of the font, which is a novel way of doing things that someone has created. And I think one more. So this theme I call the second best IPAM in the world. Maybe you used to use spreadsheets and you've migrated to NetBox, but you've not quite got used to it yet. So maybe you want your NetBox to feel more like an Excel document. This might be the theme for you. And yeah, that's kind of it. My CSS skills are pretty terrible, so it'd be interesting to see what other people do with this, or if they've got any more real use cases rather than just ridiculous ideas. But let's say you're done playing around with this. To deactivate it, you can just deactivate whatever is currently active, and it'll resume or return to however it was in the first place. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me jump back to my slides. Yeah, so what's next for this? It's still quite early. I've spent a little bit of time making this to the point where it actually works and you can use it. On this journey, I've learned quite a bit about Django, and I think I could do a better job of a lot of it now. So I think I'll go back and improve quite a bit of the code. One other thing that would be useful is, at the moment, these themes are they're global, not per user. So let's say if you've got a theme you like, but your colleagues don't like it, you're kind of stuck at the moment because it's for everyone. So I think I'd like to research and see how I could do this on a per user basis. I don't know if that's going to be server side or in some local session storage. I don't know. I need to figure that out. And another thing I'd like to play around with is maybe improving like the CSS editing experience. At the moment, it's just a text box, but maybe having some sort of CSS linter baked into that would be quite nice. Because if you write some totally invalid CSS, at the moment, it will just accept it and it just won't work. So having something to stop that happening would be quite nice. And I think that is it for me. Like I said, this is on GitHub. If you have any questions about it, I'm on like all the usual places: NetDev Slack, LinkedIn, MSN Messenger, that kind of thing. And yeah, I think I'm done.
That's awesome stuff, Rob. That's I love that. There's a lot of, I'm sure there was a lot of chuckles in the audience with some of those. Just a quick question for you. I know you said that some of the themes that you demoed aren't kind of installed by default with the plugins, but are they available? Did you share any of those?
Yeah, I need to update the repo, but inside of the GitHub repo, there is a samples directory. I mean, if this ever gets used in the real world and people start designing it, maybe the dream would be have like a themes marketplace where you could install it from inside the NetBox, but I don't know. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, let's see the interest in the community from there. Cool. Any just before we move on, any questions from the audience? Just if you feel, post them in the chat. If there's any questions for Rob at this point, we'll open it up for questions at the end as well. So if you don't have time right now, that's okay. There'll be a second opportunity to ask questions. So I see a lot of positive feedback. Roll on floor laughing, dying over here about the Excel theme, and Excel and the Doom theme seem to be the two ones that caught most people's imagination. I must admit, though, I really like the retro look of the Pokemon. I'm not a Pokemon guy, but it looked like a Game Boy type screen, so I think that was pretty awesome. Yeah, Excel for the win. So, on that note, let's move on to our second speaker. I'll just share very, very briefly my screen because I will hand it over yet again. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Apologies for that. Let's move on to the next screen. And our next presenter is Renato Oliveira. And he comes to us, actually, both of you coming from Brazil today. Now that I think about it, that was an interesting coincidence. And he's going to be talking to us about the NBRobot plugin. Over to you, Renato.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon for everyone. Let me share my screen. I will prepare a presentation and stuff like that. I'm going just for hands-on. Let's move on. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. The idea behind NBRobot is that it's part of my automation journey. Let's say I started working on network automation by entering devices, consuming administrative data, import the data and push it to NetBox and make consolidation. And then I move it to validation of that data and so on. And when you gain expertise with network automation, start to doing stuff, probably configuring devices might be the last thing you want to think when you are working on network automation. There are a lot of easier things that you can do before you start configuring devices and making changes. And NBRobot came in that sense. The idea behind NBRobot is to troubleshoot instrumentation. So let's say you have some kind of service, let's say you have some kind of real-world scenario, and you want to instrument your troubleshooting. What I want to say is that you want to make for your users a simple interface for connected devices, make some show commands, check if that show commands are returning the expected outputs. And for that, there are several testing frameworks for Python. And Robot Framework is one of those frameworks for testing. And it's very interesting because it allows the user to write tests using human language, for example, using for Robot Framework side. This is a test suite, for example. You have a documentation, just have the resources you are using inside Robot tags, and you can implement tests. For example, login with user with passwords. So connect to server, login user. You set up some attributes for that keyword, for example, the username and some kind of password, verify valid login, and the trade-off. And set up several tests. When these tests are run into Robot Framework with outputs for you things in these formats. Let's run it like this. Okay. So it returns you an HTML and then some logs. See? And that's a great tool for testing, especially in network scenarios that you can set up tests for your environment, but that's outside NetBox. So the end user for running robot frameworks, he needs to have some knowledge into CLI and to go inside some kind of server and run that. That's not so fun. And another thing is, if I want all the data that I mapped inside NetBox, I need to build some kind of interface between Robot Framework and NetBox in order to be able to get that data inside my test. And that's why I built NBRobot. The idea behind NBRobot is I'm using here a demo instance of NetBox. In my environment, I'm using version 4.2.2 here. And let's see. So let's start building a project in Robot. So let's go to a simple demo. Okay. Great. Now let's add some resources to my demo. So what kind of resources? I'm using SQL demo project. Let's add a test suite. Here you go, make upload of that. So test robot. You can sync that with a data source too, another option. So here's my test robot and what it's doing. This is a robot file for suite. What test case? Here's like some simple robot test, and at the end, it's iterating over the variable devices. So I'm injecting NetBox devices inside the test suite, and I'm just logging it device side. The great advantage here using this way is where you have access to Django RM. So whenever thing you are doing inside your tests, you have all Django RM available to your tests. So there are several possibilities and things you can work on it. So what I also need here, I need a keywords resource. So let's add that resource. So SQL demo, keywords, okay. That's the source file. Labeling the keywords, okay. And finally, let's add our variable. So for the project, the variable is called devices. That variable name is the same variable name we are using inside our robot environment. And what related objects? I'm working with devices. And let's add some variable data here for simplicity. Just JSON with the future. So I want to run my tests over this device, that device. Okay, great. And that's it. We have our project. Our project has a test robot resource, have a keyword resource. Let's run it. Okay. So it should be done right now. The robot XML results. So everything that's done. Then finally the results page. So let's see. Simple test. So should be title case, test the title case, and several demo examples. But let's go for our NetBox iteration. So I have a test device iteration. So for each device, you have a signing device. My test iteration I'm working with the device. That's the site of that device it was assigned here. See? The device it was assigned here was the BepNet NetBox device iOS. Let's see. See? That way you can build your custom tests. You can assign the building tasks for a different team, for a more specialized team that knowledge from robot framework, knowledge from network automation. And you having with less technical team working just for running tests. So let's say these projects means tests for some use case service. So let's say what kind of tests I can make to instrument some kind of troubleshoot. For example, let's say that a device is pinging somewhere, or the operational data in that device matches the administrative data. For example, let's say you have an MPLS scenario with device, and some VRF on the device should have some routes. So you can instrument that in a way that robot framework can log into that device, gather the routes inside the VRF, and if there are any missing routes or if there are any problems with the operational data, if I'm gonna show you as a failed test like this. Then your troubleshooting team can go directly into the problem and lag behind on it. Now let's make a different scenario, different test, like instrumentation. And for this use case, I'm building a different thing. Let's add for the instrumentation project a custom library. And that's why we have more fun. Okay, what is that? That's a Python library for working with robot framework. That Python code allows me to define queues and keywords to use in tests. So you can have your automation team building your instrumentation tools for example, ping devices, running show commands, making tests about that thing. And for example, in this case, I'm only doing connect to the device, and it's gonna connect to that device, ping some kind of address from the device, and it's gonna ping that device, and so on. So let's add some other things like here. So instrumentation. Let's set up our keywords. Okay. These keywords only defines the library. That's our instrumentation. And user and password. I'm using the iOS XC from .NET Sandbox for that demo. And finally, let's set our test suite. Okay. And what is this doing? So I'm using the resource keyword that defined for and collection test for every device inside the device variable defined in NetBox. So you can use the whole filtering features from NetBox to select what kind of devices you want to add to your test scope. I add that device, and for every device, I'm pinging this address from that device. What that means, the robot frameworks are connecting that device and issuing the command ping and whatever IP address you put here. Well, let's say that's working. Okay, instrumentation. I have, oh, sorry. It's missing my devices variable. So instrumentation, devices. Again, for simplicity, I'm using the same device. Right. Okay, let's go to our project. Run, and I have that running. Go to operation. Let's see the job. In this use case, I did connect into that device, so it may take a little bit. All that are running into NetBox RQ, so it's a non-blocking job. Okay, completed. Let's see. Let's see the XML, and here it is. See? I connected into, that's connected to the device in part 22, escalate privilege, executed the ping output, and has everything fails. That probably fails. I've used then a non-generic IP address, which is intended to fail. In that case, this test doesn't make any kind of ascent. So it's gonna return me then pass or false. But the idea here is telling you that with this approach, you can connect devices, executing commands, receiving the results, make assertions about that operational output, and show that for your users into different kinds of that. So, operation for that device. Now, and here have all the message from the scrapping. That the ping output. And I think that's it. That's the features I'm building inside NBRobot. The goal, still there are some bugs and things that I have to work on. It's a beta release. But that's it. That's all I have to show. Are there any questions to think about? Want to talk?
Great stuff, Renato. Really interesting. Be able to run kind of automated test frameworks directly from NetBox. That is, and kind of using the NetBox ORM. I can see a lot of potential there. Any questions from anybody in the audience on that one? That's very interesting. Is the repo publicly available yet, or is that
Yes.
still okay?
Yes.
Cool. So maybe if you have a chance, Renato, if you can post the URL in the chat, if anybody's interested in finding it, I guess they can probably Google it as well. So cool.
I know it's published.
Thank you. Well, let's open up more broadly. Any questions for Renato, but also if anybody's come up with any questions for Rob in the meantime as well, we'll open it up to just any general questions, comments. Anybody? Oh, there doesn't seem to be any questions. I think that probably covers it very well. Oh, actually, it's asking Rob, can you post your GitHub link to your repo in the?
Certainly can.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Rob. So on that note, maybe I will take over and close this out. So as we always do in these calls, I make a no pun intended call for future speakers. So we had two great speakers today, Rob and Renato, but we're always looking for more, people who want to share their story with but with NetBox, whether it's in this case it was two plugins, but it could be other things that are not necessarily plugins. They could be integrations. They could be use cases in the way that you're using NetBox, modeling, and other things like that. So we'd love to hear from you. The community would love to hear from you. It's always amazing what people are able to do with NetBox, and sometimes in very novel ways. So if you got a story, we'd love to hear from you. If you don't like kind of the public speaking aspect of it, that's okay as well. We can work together in other ways, whether it's a blog post or some other media that we could use to kind of share your story. So feel free, reach out to us. You can reach out to us at product@netboxlabs.com, or reach out directly to anybody you might know at NetBox Labs, and we'll happily kind of work with you on that. So on that note, I think this kind of closes our call for today. I'm just going to check on to see if there's any other. Just trying to see. Sorry, do we have any other messages in the chat? Any questions? So I've got somebody who's thank you, Michael. I will reach out on that note. But if anybody else has any other stories, feel free to reach out to us. So we've already got the March call already scheduled, so it's going to be Tuesday, March 11th, the same time as this one. So it's exactly 4 weeks from today, since it's a February 28-day month. You can register already on our website. And on that note, actually, I see there's a couple more comments. Let me check them out. Just lots of thank yous. So to close things out, I just want to thank again Rob and Renato. Great stuff. Thank you for presenting those things and those two plugins. Very different plugins for different use cases, obviously. But it's always interesting to see what people are able to do with NetBox. And on that note, I will thank everyone for participating this month, and we'll see you next month. Thanks again, Rob, Renato, and everyone for joining. Talk to you in a month.